The best Clash Royale players aren't just reacting faster, they're running a full-blown intel operation. Every card you play, every second you wait, is feeding them more information they'll use to control the match. Today, I'm going to show you how to flip that script. Gather intel like a pro, deny your opponent crucial information, and control the tempo from the first elixir drop to the final push. When I say intel, I'm talking about three things: knowing your opponent's cycle, reading their elixir, and predicting their win condition before they even play it. That combination gives you information asymmetry. You know more about their position than they know about yours. And when you pair that with tempo control, it's lethal. Making all the correct plays in Clash Royale isn't enough to be professional. This game is ruthless. You need to make the correct play and do it fast enough to capitalize fully on proper mechanics. More intel leads to better decision making because it will allow you to predict what your opponent is going to do at a much higher frequency. Think about playing Goblin Gang behind your tower to predict a miner. Near guarantee shutdown if you're right. That's worth way more than a small elixir lead. It's why a player with worse mechanics can still dominate someone more technically sound, because they are winning the information war. Think of the first 30 seconds of a match as testing the water. Your goal isn't damage, it's data. You want to learn their deck without showing yours. That means opening with low risk, low commitment plays that can't be punished. Beatdown and Cycle decks capitalize on this strategy differently, but they both follow the same thesis. Cycle decks want to cycle Skeletons, Ice Spirit, or Split Wall Breakers at the bridge. These kinds of plays are simply not punishable, and no matter what deck your opponent has, it's impossible for them to gain a significant advantage. Beatdown players never make the first play because they are okay with the game going into double elixir. If the beatdown player doesn't make the first play, they are essentially forking the opponent on a macro level. The opponent needs to either reveal information first or go into double elixir against the beatdown player, who typically gains a significant advantage leaving single elixir. Watch for what I call information leaks. If your opponent drops a big tank immediately, it tells you a ridiculous amount of information that you guys at home might be missing. The number one reason for this is that their hand is efficient at supporting the tank effectively in single elixir. Think to yourself, Golem, Night Witch, Lumberjack pushes. And if this is the case, they're willing to sacrifice the other lane to create an unstoppable push. Another reason is that they want to cycle their evolutions fast, and they're willing to sacrifice early tower damage to gain tempo advantage with their evolutions. The most infamous example of this is P.E.K.K.A. Goblin Giant. They are heavily incentivized to take negative trades early game with their P.E.K.K.A. and their Goblin Giants to prioritize getting to their evolutions faster. The last reason someone drops a tank first play is that they are simply impatient. This happens more than you think, primarily in lower arenas, but this definitely still happens in top 10,000 gameplay. When we play Clash Royale for a long time without breaks, it affects people differently, but a very common symptom is boredom. Most beatdown players simply do not have the discipline to use their tanks perfectly, and many of them get bored and want to make a push when they shouldn't. Another common information leak that many players don't realize is how they choose to defend at the start of the game. This topic is extremely nuanced and could be its own video in itself, so if you want me to go more in depth, please let me know in the comments below. If you miner their tower first play, for example, and they choose to completely ignore it, that speaks volumes. It essentially rules out the majority of control and cycle decks. That means on that play alone, you can rule out up to 80% of the deck pool before your opponent places a single card down. Every piece of intel you gather here is ammo. You're going to use that later to take control of the match, without taking a single point of damage on your towers to get it. Clash Royale's cycle is simple. Once a card is played, it takes 4 other cards before it comes back into your hand. But most players don't track it, and that's like playing blindfolded. Here's how to do it without memorizing all 8 cards. Use what I call the anchor method. Every time they play their main counter to your win condition, mentally anchor that moment. Count each card they play afterward. When they've played 3 different cards, you know the counter is coming back on the very next one. That's your window to pressure before it returns. Think Mini P.E.K.K.A. for Hog Rider or Inferno Tower for Royal Giant. You can also spot cycle patterns. Some players play their counter in the same spot or the same order. Once you see the rhythm, you can break it by forcing them to defend something else right before their counter would have cycled back. That's absolutely essential in top ladder. If it feels overwhelming, trust me, you are not alone. My goal is to break down the nuances of Cycle into easily palatable videos, so you guys can feel like you were able to do this, just like the professionals can. Gathering intel is only half the game. The other half is keeping your opponent in the dark. The easiest mistake players make is revealing their win condition too early. The moment they see it, they mentally lock in their counter, and from that point on, you're playing on their schedule. Instead, use what I call cycle noise. These are plays that keep your rotation moving without tipping your hand. Cards like Ice Spirit, Skeletons, or even Logging the Bridge reveal little information about your real win condition, but they put pressure on other cycle decks to make the first move. You can also misdirect. If you are running a homemade deck, your biggest advantage is asymmetrical information, because it is so much more difficult for them to figure out your 8 cards than for you to figure out theirs. So don't waste it. Play into one archetype first. Make them think you're running Royal Giant when you're actually setting up a graveyard. That misread can win you a game, because it gives your opponent an opportunity to blunder by playing their counters at the wrong time. Information without action is useless. The real power comes when you use intel to control tempo, deciding exactly when and where the big exchanges happen. If you know their counter is 1 card away, that's your green light. Drop your win condition before they can cycle back, and you've bought yourself a guaranteed positive trade. If they are low on elixir from over-defending last push, you can simply push opposite lane and make them split resources they don't have. Every successful tempo feeds into the next one. When they're constantly reacting on your schedule, their cycle gets messy, their trades get worse, and your information lead just keeps growing. By the time they realize what happened, the game's already slipping away. Clash Royale isn't just a game of making good decks and protecting your towers. It's a game of intel and timing. When you gather information faster than your opponent, hide your own intentions, and attack them exactly when they are weakest, it will unlock advantages you didn't even know were possible. Start looking at every match like an intelligence mission. The player who controls the information controls the tempo, and the player who controls the tempo controls the win.